For just a couple of minutes, I'd like to take just a few moments to open up the floor to the possibility for anybody who may be reading something in their own personal study time. That's something that I really, really want to encourage people to do, is to not make just tonight or Sunday morning or whatever the times that you get into the Word, but that you'll spend some personal time in the Word. Just kind of open up to a testimony time if there's something that you've been learning or God's been teaching you in your own personal study time, or maybe questions you've come across in the past week or so that maybe you'd like to chat about, just for a few moments here.
I remember last week we had the situation with Adam and Eve where God was like, why are you doing this? And I remember when we read Jonah a few months back, we made the reference to Adam and Eve. I remember that we talked about that in the Cain and Abel narrative as well.
The questioning?
Yeah, the questioning.
The questioning from God of what? Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. Good connection, yeah. Anybody else?
When you were talking about the fig leaves and the covering, there's like a lot of different coverings in the Bible, like the coat of many colors, and like there's different clothing.
Yeah.
Where they're clothed with stuff.
Yeah, that's good. That the coverings, the clothing motif is going to be a really big repeating theme all the way up to the nakedness of Jesus up to the cross. He'll be uncovered.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. And the sun seeing him naked.
Yep. Yep.
Adam and Eve named after the fall.
Yep. Yep. Anybody else? It doesn't even have to be things that we've talked about in the past. Just something, if you've been reading in the Bible and something popped up.
What was the rabbit hole we talked about Tuesday about something you didn't want to discuss? You don't want
Oh, is that how? No, you're right. Here's surprise. You have to come on Tuesdays, okay? What happens on Tuesdays?
Do angels die?
Yes. And my answer was yes, no, maybe. Yeah, ultimately. Yes, no, maybe. Yeah. There you go.
They have eternal souls. Oh, wait, they don't have eternal souls, do they?
So we're gonna step around that rabbit hole tonight, and we'll just move on from that point. At this point, if y'all want to meet on Tuesdays, though, we can do that again this week, and we'll just do that. But nobody else has anything else they want to talk?
Is that why we can listen to it if we're driving around?
Oh, Miss Mary, I'm so sorry. You were such a faithful listener too, and I ixnayed that recording thing because I was like, I don't know. Yeah.
Ask too many weird questions.
Yeah. It's for my own protection, my own, I'd like to keep this job, and so if we'd like to, no.
Hey, we're gone for a month and a half.
Oh.
I'd like to see that recorded.
Well, okay, if you would prefer,
You won't have to worry about it.
that's true, I'll keep it.
Although I can.
If you would prefer that we at least record or live stream the Tuesday things, just raise your hand. Dang it. Okay. All right.
Adam, one mic, middle of the table.
I'm setting up then, okay? Because that one mic will inevitably still not work.
The second week of recording.
I know. That's why I have to stop. It's a slippery slope, okay? Slippery slope.
Cell phone handy, so stop and call in.
See, that's what really needs to happen. One of y'all just need to set your phone on record in the middle of the table and then send it out on, like, the text or something. Be like, there you go. There it is. I'm not capable of, like, just... Yeah. Oh, actually, we do have that ability for people to join in on a Zoom call or something. We could do something like that, but...
I think you did a great job this morning.
Thank you. I will sleep really well tonight. So it's been a week. I appreciate that. All right, let's move on. Cain. We are in the Cain and Abel story. We are in the Cain and Abel narrative, just chapter 4. We actually stopped just shy of verse 8 last week. Now, again, we are not going to cover every single element of the Cain and Abel story. There is so much here, and so much here still left to discover. But for the sense of my goal here personally is to be able to be through the Genesis 1 through 11 chapter narrative by our Christmas break. And maybe in the spring, maybe move into a New Testament book, believe it or not. We can move into John or something. So that's my thought, unless I'm overruled by everyone in this room like I was the recording, so what control do I actually have, you know? That's my goal. In order to get to that goal, we have to, well, we're going to start moving at some point. So Genesis chapter 4. Genesis chapter 4, the way that this narrative is working is it's taking so many of the themes that were set up in the first 3 chapters, and it's beginning to interplay and interweave these into the narratives, and it's starting to create these questions, create this mindset. Where is Genesis 4 taking place physically? Outside what gate?
East gate.
The east gate of the garden. In Eden, the garden in Eden. And it is important that we do differentiate the fact that we are outside of the garden, but we are still in Eden, right? The way that the narrative kind of breaks it down is that they are by a gate, by a door. Why do you say that we are by a door? Why is there this assumption that we are by a gate or by a door?
Because it says so.
Yeah, what's it say? Read it.
There's a big cherubim there with a flaming sword.
Well, yep, that was the end of chapter 3, but in chapter 4, why are we to make the assumption that we're still in the same area, locale, same place?
Because it didn't say they went anywhere else.
It didn't, right? But did it say something specific to show that maybe we could potentially be in the same place still? Say it.
Sin is crouching at the door.
Yeah. So Cain is struggling, right? And he is having this little conversation with God, and he says that if you do well, you're going to be elevated as well. He says, why are you angry? Why is your face fallen? If you do well, won't you be accepted? This is the word literally. Won't you be lifted up? That is the literal interpretation there. And if you do not do well, sin is a croucher at the door. Now, some of y'all's translation, how many say at your door? Any of yours translations say at your door? Yeah? So this is an interpretive stance that the authors or the English interpreters, translators took. At your door would be that kind of an interpretive method of like maybe your own personal, like sin is within your heart, like at the door. It wants to crouch you. But the physical, literal translation says the door. It just says at the door. It's not that yours is wrong or mine is right. That's not what I'm trying to say here. But I'm just saying that the idea here is that there is something that is now personified as almost a beast-like character, which would fit into the theme of what we just read in Genesis chapter 3. What beast did we just read about in chapter 3? The serpent, right? And how is the serpent going to continue on relating to man as we move forward throughout this, according to chapter 3? What is the serpent's ways, or what about the serpent's existence is going to continue to relate to humanity outside of the garden? What will it do? Huh? Well, that's the consequence of the fall for the woman. Yes. What will?
The serpent.
Okay, so the serpent will strike the heel of what? A man. Seed of a woman, right? But the seed of the woman will be battling, like what you were saying, in a way, that will be battling with the seed of the serpent. So the question remains, okay, are we talking literal baby snakes everywhere that's going to be constantly trying to bite us? Are we talking, is this trying to make a theological statement? Now, all of us understand this from today, in 2023. Looking backwards, we know who the serpent is. We kind of understand. But this is a proof text of, okay, well, so how does this work, right? Does this mean literal baby snakes are going to be going around, or is there a way for humans to take on the personification of the beast, ultimately? And yeah, exactly. So Cain here is going to be given this option. Hey, look, there's this way. There's this one way, right? You can be like the woman, your mom, your dad. You can choose to do good, and you will just continue to be the seed of the woman, and one day one of the seed of the woman will crush that of the serpent. Right? There's my serpent a little better this time. There you go. Right? So you got a bunch of baby snakes, right? A bunch of baby snakes around here, right? And they're going to be at war constantly until one day the seed of a woman will come and crush the actual serpent's head, whilst receiving kind of this mutual blow with humanity. So this is presented by Cain, who there's two kids. Who are the two kids? Right? There's Abel and there's Cain. And they're both presented with the ability to be lifted up, to be elevated up, right? They make an offering. Why did they make an offering? Let me ask that question.
They just knew they needed to.
To
Say
cover their
thanks God
sins.
for what you've done.
Well, their mom and dad done sinned, so now there had to be offerings made.
How do they know that?
Well, I'm sure God told them.
I mean, are you sure?
There's no right answer.
We're not told is the problem.
It doesn't, yeah, it
There's
doesn't say.
there's actually not.
Somebody told them.
Right. In fact, if you go down the assumption track, you have to go with the fact that how would they even know how to make the offering? Because we're, 3 books removed from Leviticus itself, which will give, we're multiple generations removed from that. So the question is, okay, well, how did Abel know to give the offering of, and what was his offering?
The first.
Yeah. Not just the firstborn, right?
The best.
Oh, the fat portion. He wanted the good cut, right? He gave the good cut, right? And then what was Cain's offering?
The best of his grain.
Yes, the first fruit of his grain or the cereal offerings, whatever. I kind of made like a grape thing, so there you go. That'll work. And what happens? What does God choose? Or what's God's response to this offering?
He has respect for Abel's and not for Cain's.
Okay.
So that kind of tells you Cain gave the wrong stuff.
Well, let's not fill in too many of the blanks.
Was it the best of Cain's crop?
Well, let's just read it again. In the course of time, well, again, she had Abel, and Abel was a keeper of the sheep, and Cain was a worker of the ground. Verse 3, in the course of time, Cain brought to the Lord an offering of the fruit of the ground, and Abel also brought of the firstborn of his flock and their fat portions. And the Lord had regard for Abel and his offering, but for Cain and his offering he had no regard. So what does that mean? What does y'all's translation say for regard?
Mine says respect.
Respect? Respect. Did not accept. Huh? Okay. So what translation is yours? The NIV? This is actually a lot closer idea to this word. And the idea is not so much that God is going to actively give a negative response toward Cain's, but that in making the positive response for Abel's offering, the negative is to follow. And so in other words, it'd be like me saying that cake back there is my absolute favorite cake. But it doesn't mean that I don't like other cakes or I wouldn't accept a different cake. It just means that's my favorite. And if that's my favorite, then it would follow that God's favorite was not, the other cake. So it's not so much that I love that cake and hate all those other cakes or hate the other cake. It's just that my favorite is that one. I had favor in that one, and then the negative would follow, therefore, that God did not have favor of Cain's offering. Yeah.
So, God did not specifically say it has to be an animal you don't believe? Because that's what I wondered. I wondered if God said to make an
Yeah.
offering to me, it has to be shed blood. And so maybe Cain just thought, well, I don't want to do it the way God said, because I work in the garden. I mean, I'm a
Farmer.
Yeah.
so I want to bring you the best of what I grow.
Yeah.
Maybe he saw it that way, so therefore God's like, I don't have favor with that because you didn't obey me.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that I don't like that you're a farmer and appreciate you just didn't obey. So I wondered if
So much of this is that we're having to fill in the blanks. And later in the New Testament, there'll be a little bit more that's kind of given to us as far as that goes. But I don't want to go to that part first. What I want to point out is how much of the blanks we fill in, and the danger in doing that. Because the problem is when you start to make assumptions about whether Cain did something good or bad, you're throwing yourself in the midst of the problem that it's trying to get us to see in the first place. That man's not really good at choosing what is good and bad. And so what the author does not give us is what they should have done at all. It doesn't give us this was the way and this is the way they went astray. What it says is that he gave one thing. And the reason why the door here is important is if you were to do a search, can anybody think of anything in their mind in the Old Testament specific other times where this idea that at the door of something? Okay, so we have Noah's Ark, yep. At the door of the ship, and what happens on the inside of the door? Huh? It's sealed. They're safe. They're in the presence of God, right? What happens on the outside?
They're shut out.
There's shut out, death, destruction, right? Yeah. What else? Can anybody think of anybody else? Okay, yeah, yep, okay, so we'll just call it, they're in the Exodus narrative. That's a really good one. And what happens if there's blood over the door?
Passover.
Right, so if you're on the inside of the door, you're safe, your firstborn is good. If you're on the outside of the door, the angel of death, gone. Any other doors? Can you think of? Huh? Yes, yes, and yes, but more specifically, can you think of any other times? It doesn't have to be that either. Let's think as early as we possibly can. Can you think?
Where did the sheep's pen? Because there was a parable about how the shepherd lays across the door so nothing can get in. John King and
I actually do not remember that parable, but I'll have to look into that. That's good. Yeah, that's probably. Let's look back in Genesis. There's a couple other door narratives on Genesis. Okay, yeah. Yes, yep. A little further down the line now. One of the other ones that we see is this awful, Passover. Yep, that's the Passover, that's the Exodus right there. Before that, in Genesis, there's going to be a moment where something is going to take place at the doorway. People are going to stand on one side and demand something, and the other people, there you go, Lot and his daughter. And on the inside, we have man in presence, safe, being shut up for the night, secure with a couple heavenly beings, actually. And on the outside, we have a bunch of ravenous, beast-like men who are multiplied a multiplied version of what we're seeing in this story here. And they're controlling themselves. They're demanding that they are given these two heavenly beings to have their way with them, right? And it's a disgusting, awful, disgusting story, right? But this is a theme that will pervade all of the Bible. And the idea is that they're on the one side of the door, you're safe, there's life, there's protection. This is what we see in the pattern of Eden. But on the other side, there's a choice. There's a choice to rule this beast, to rule this sin, and to continue to do well. And if you do well, the actual word is that you will be lifted up. What do you think that means, to be elevated, to be lifted up? Successful? Yeah, maybe in the world's terms, but specifically, what direction do we use when it comes to where God is and God's present? Yeah, up there, right? God's up there. We're down here.
Get you away from all the trash and garbage.
Yeah, Eden is considered the mountain of God. We get to be elevated up, right? So the idea here is if you do well, you will get back through this door. In fact, this whole narrative will continue through another whole door, which will be the separations, the door of the tent. The door of the tent to the holy place.
I said that earlier. I said holy.
Exactly. And right in front of the door of in the tent to the holy place, do you know what is right in front of the curtain that separates the Holy of Holies from where people are into the Holy of Holies? Do you know what's there? Well, that's the door. That's the veil.
The cherubim.
Huh?
I don't know.
There's a table for sacrifice.
Oh, yeah.
It's an altar. And so this is all stuff that will be taken as we continue down the path throughout the Bible, where there will be this idea that if you do well, if you offer up what the New Testament languages will be, like I quoted this morning, yourself as a living sacrifice, if you make the offerings according to the way that God will tell us, if you do well, you will eventually be able to be elevated up like Cain. So Cain and Abel here are at the door giving up their offerings, and God is going to favor one, and ipso facto not favor the other. And now he's going to be presented with this option to control this, and he will also be elevated. But if he doesn't control it, its desire is contrary to him. And we know what happens is he kills his brother, which then brings him over and solidifies his ways in the seed of a serpent.
So the point isn't what he did wrong.
Yeah.
Necessarily. The point
It's not about the offering.
what his choice was after God didn't respect it.
One that
Right.
was from the heart and one wasn't.
Well, it's not about the offering at all. What it's about is the response to something that they didn't understand. God is going to offer at Cain wisdom. And if you listen to God's wisdom and you continue, then it's all going to be good. But if you choose to do what's right in your own eyes, it's not going to be good. And what happens is Cain is going to choose what's right in his own eyes, And the favored younger sibling, the one who did everything right, paid the price with his life. And so what we're going to see is this pattern that's going to be on repeat of the failure, kind of more of like the folly fall of the first generation. This is the Adam and Eve narrative, right? This is the don't touch this, and it's the kid's version of touching the hot thing, and they learn now, oh no, that was bad. But it's not that they were like super like trying to be bad purposefully. It was just more like almost like a child trying to learn. Like, oh no, you guys fell. Great, now we got to fix the problem. And then the next generation is going to go through this test. And it's a test of if you do well, it's good. If you do bad, it's not going to be good. And what's going to happen is the next generation is going to take this test and they're going to do something way worse. Now this is more purposeful. He's going to take this life, right? Now what's interesting is what were the professions of these two? Anybody remember? So one was a shepherd, more appropriately, and one was what?
Farmer.
Okay, yeah, farmer, gardener, something like that. A worker of the ground, which we understand also, Cain is actually working this thing that was cursed. Right? Yeah, Cain is working this thing that is cursed. So Cain has the ability to take this thing and to offer it back to God, and maybe God will bring rest back to the ground, but instead what does he do? He spills something on the ground. Right? Do it, say it.
Blood.
Right. Oh, his brother's blood, right? Here's the blood. Oh, it's not good. And what's that gonna result in? Let's read it, verse 8. Cain spoke to Abel, his brother. Let's see if you recognize any repeating words or phrases here. Cain spoke to Abel, his brother, and when they were in the field, Cain rose up against his brother, Abel, and killed him. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Where is Abel, your brother?" He said, "I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper?" And the Lord said, "What have you done? The voice of your brother's blood is crying to me from the ground. And now you are cursed from the ground from which has opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. And when you work the ground, it shall no longer yield to you its own strength. You shall be a fugitive and a wanderer in the earth." All right, let's stop there. You notice anything repeating?
Brother.
Nothing's gonna grow for me.
Brother, yep, ground. Any guesses on how many times brother is actually going to be repeated in this whole phrase? A bunch. 7 total. Hint, hint. That'll be really
7
interesting.
times.
7 times this is going to be repeated. Brother, 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 brother.
Oh, he's gonna be cursed.
So now what we see is the ground that was cursed is going to be cursed now even more, but instead of work and toil, it's cursed from the blood that was spilled. And so Cain has officially moved himself over to the seed of the serpent. But now the question remains, what do we do with this? Does this end with Cain? Is this done? Well, if you continue this story, what we find out is Cain is told to go do what? Yeah, go wander, Cain. Go wander. Wander around. Go wander. In fact, if you didn't know, you're actually going to go to a land that is just literally called wander, land of wandering. Nod. Nod is the transliteration for a word that just means land of wanderings, right? So what is Cain going to do immediately when he gets to the land of wanderings?
He's gonna
He's going to settle. And what's he going to do?
have a kid named Enoch.
Huh? He's going to build a city, right? Which is just a whole bunch of doors and walls, right? A whole bunch of protections. And if my doors and walls are bigger and better than their doors and walls, what do I get to do? I get to take over their doors and walls. And if I have doors and walls, guess who I don't have to really depend upon for protection and security? God. And so Cain is called to go and wander, like become literally the thing that your brother was. Like go, you can't garden anymore, Cain. You need to go become a shepherd. You're going to be one who exists out there in the field. You're going to live in the land of the field. You're going to begin to, it's going to force you to ultimately rely on God for protection. You're out there in the exposed wilderness, right? You need to be protected by God. But what he's going to do is he's going to have another generation, his own son, and that son, and he's going to build a city, and he's going to name that city basically after his own son, Enoch. And at this point, we have now moved fully from Eden He's going to move east of Eden. Now, east of Eden will then become a phrase, will become a direction that will have major implications, because if he is moving away from the presence of the Lord to the east, what happens when any narrative later on in the Hebrew Scriptures talks about anything going east? Yeah, it's going to stir up some feelings like, I don't know, it's going to be a good thing. Right? And then when the tabernacle will be constructed and the temple will be constructed, any idea which direction it is, the Holy of Holies is going to be the furthest back in? Which direction you will have to walk in order to get to the Holy of Holies? You're going to have to walk west, right? Because you're going back to the presence of God. So it's this physical representation that they're going to set up. Hey, look, physically it's going to be in the center of camp, but you're going to just remember we need to go back west, because that's like that physical representation of what it means to go back towards Eden. Okay, for the last 30 minutes, I want to have some fun and stuff that nobody ever gets really nerdy and excited about, and it is genealogies, right? Because now what we have here is we have a serpent seed here, or a serpent here, one who has now taken over the idea that he is going to be the seed of the serpent. But that also means we have no more seed of the woman available, right? Well, until you read verse 25, and Adam knew his wife again, and she bore a son and called his name Seth. For she said, God has appointed for me another offspring instead of Abel. For Cain killed him, in case you had already forgotten. To Seth also a son was born, and he called his name Enosh. And Enosh is the word, so we have a new guy, right? All right. Well, let's just erase this guy. He's bled down here. So we have a new guy, and this is Seth. Yay, that's good. And he's going to have his own little son, and his name, literally, it means humanity. Humanity. Okay. So let's find out what happens when the second generation, who has now destroyed even further what the first generation did, what happens when that generation begins to have children? Verse 17, Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bore Enoch. When he built a city, he called the name of the city after the name of his son Enoch. To Enoch was born Irad, and Irad was the father of Mehujael, and Mehujael fathered Methushael, and Methushael fathered Lamech. And Lamech took 2 wives. The name of the one was Ada, and the name of the other was Zillah. And Ada bore Jabal. He was the father of those who dwelt in tents and had livestock. His brother's name was Jubal. He was the father of all those who played those beautiful pipes and instrument, right? His brother's name was Jubal. He was the father of all those. Okay. Zillah also bore Tubal-Cain. He was a forger of all the instruments of bronze and iron. His name literally means blacksmith. He was a blacksmith. I wonder if the blacksmith is going to come into play here. The sister of Tubal-Cain was, delightful. Naamah, delightful. Lamech said to his 2 wives, and insert next song, beautiful song. I mean, this is a top 10 hit right here. Ada and Zillah, hear my voice. You wives of Lamech, listen to what I say. I have killed a man for wounding me, and a young man for striking me. If Cain's revenge is 7-fold, then Lamech's is 77-fold. So we have generation after generation after generation after generation after generation, and now we get to Lamech, right? I mean, Lamech, this dude's awesome. He's flexing his muscles here. He's this cool. In fact, he has kids, and these kids, they're very artsy, and actually they help bring forth like a lot of really cool things like music and, arts and stuff like that. But then one of them also happens to be a forger of metals. And guess what? I wonder if these metals are going to be taken by this guy named Lamech. And then what's going to happen is, you guys have heard the eye for an eye situation in Exodus. Well, the point of the eye for the eye is to make sure that people don't go above and beyond in their retribution towards those who happen to harm them. I wonder if this guy's going to listen to that. No, he's going to get a boo-boo and he's going to go and murder 2 people. And then you're like, this seems like a way worse situation than what we have with the Cain and Abel thing, right? We're generations down and we're like, oh no, he's taken 2 wives, he's had a bunch of kids, and now he's killing people. And not only that, did you notice what else he said at the end? What does he say at the end? Verse 24. What about it? Yeah, by whom? By him. And what is he relating this to?
To the Cain situation.
Yeah, the part that we didn't read. So Cain starts, go back just a little bit. Cain starts whining. God, this is too much for me. I can't even lift. You told me I could be lifted up. I can't even lift up this punishment, is what he says. It's too much for me. Besides, all these people are going to kill me when they see me. And God, what's he do? He puts a mark on him. And he says, if anybody does hurt you, what's he say?
Suffer vengeance 7 times over.
So who will avenge Cain's pain or toil or whatever he will take place to him? Who's going to make that the vengeance there? Yeah, so God is. So what is Lamech doing now? Yeah. He's taking the blessing from God and he's creating a curse out of it himself. He's taking the blessing of God and he's creating a curse out of it himself. Oh, if Cain's revenge is sevenfold, this is nerdy, but actually the literal translation puts the 7 at the beginning. It goes 7 times Cain's revenge. Lamech's 70 times 7 is what it will be. And so he's this beautiful one-hit wonder of a song for Lamech. It's just really talking about his heart, right? And we're thinking, I wonder if this guy is still seed of the serpent. Yeah, it's not great, right? Okay, now this is where it gets really fun. So Adam knows his wife again. That's not like knowledge, it's a different knowledge, okay? He knows his wife again. Has Seth. Seth has a new son, right? Seth's new son, humanity. Right? Interesting. And then we get to 32 lines of copy and paste genealogy. And it's just everyone's favorite thing in the whole world to read, right? Okay, so somebody tell me why this is here. Except for you, maybe, because you might actually know. To torture us. That's good, right?
To throw with.
I so want to read it. I might just read it. I might read it.
A long time has happened between such and such and so forth.
Okay, so we're going to go plenty of time later,
It's to
right?
make us stop reading, like throw us off, and it's actually
It's actually really important. And it's really cool, okay? So, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read it. And even while reading, I'm just going to tell you, my eyes are going to start to glaze over. And I'm just going to start to zombify off because I'm not medicated right now and my ADHD dies in this. But hang in there because I want you to remember this one particular thing. For most of all of human history, you did not own this. This was spoken aloud to a crowd from one individual. And when you understand that, you'll understand that the writers want to get your attention on certain things, and the best way they can do that are these little awesome, incredible tricks, right? Okay, so here we go. This is chapter 5. Hang in here. I promise you, it's going to be cool. This is the book of the generations of Adam. Side note. Sorry, we didn't get very far. So there's anybody catch that? There's another scroll, the scroll of Adam. Apparently. I wonder what that is. I'd like to read that sometime. So this is from the scroll of Adam, okay? Just so you know, copy and paste the scroll of Adam. Here we go. When God created man, he made him in the likeness of God. Male and female, he created them, and he blessed them and named them man when they were created. When Adam had lived 130 years, he fathered a son in his own likeness, after his image. His name was Seth. The days of Adam after he fathered Seth were 800 years, and he had other sons and daughters. Of Adam after he fathered Seth. Oh, my goodness. I lost my place. Thus all the days, thank you, of Adam, the days that Adam lived were 930 years, and he died. When Seth lived 105 years, he fathered Enosh. Seth lived after he fathered Enosh 807 years, and had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Seth were 912 years, and he died. When Enosh had lived 90 years, he fathered Kenan. Enosh lived after he fathered Kenan 815 years, and had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Enosh were 905 years, and he died. When Kenan had lived 70 years, he fathered Mahalalel. Kenan lived after he fathered Mahalalel 840 years, and had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Kenan were 910 years, and he died. When Mahalalel lived 65 years, he fathered Jared. Mahalalel lived after he fathered Jared 830 years, and had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Mahalalel were 895 years, and he died. When Jared had lived 162 years, he fathered Enoch. Jared lived after he fathered Enoch 800 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Jared were 962 years, and he died. When Enoch lived 65 years, he fathered Methuselah. Enoch walked with God, and he fathered Methuselah 300 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Enoch were 365 years. Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. When Methuselah had lived 187 years, he fathered Lamech. Methuselah lived after he fathered Lamech 782 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Methuselah were 969 years old when he died. When Lamech had lived 182 years, he fathered a son, and he called his name Noah, saying, out of the ground that the Lord had cursed, this one shall bring us relief from our work and from the painful toil of our hands. Lamech lived after he fathered Noah 595 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Lamech were 777 years, and he died. After Noah was 500 years old, he fathered Shem, Ham, and Japheth.
Yeah.
Let me ask you something.
Yes.
At this point in time, were all the women barren until the men were 100 and something? Or did they just take?
We're talking prime time of their life at 167 years old, right?
Exactly.
All right, anybody notice some things?
In verse 24, there's a hard right turn because
Hold on. What'd you say?
They're all alive at the same time. They live these extended periods of time. So they're all, they are knowing each other.
Yeah. What else? Anybody else notice anything else?
Well, there's
I
another
just
Enoch
said-
and another Lamech.
Okay. Good. There's more Enochs and more Lamechs. Okay.
But this Enoch was taken.
yeah, he didn't.
Yeah, anybody catch that?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, I thought you were gonna stop right there, and you didn't.
And that's the point where you go, what?
That's
What?
God
What?
wants you to do.
And then in
Just stop
32,
what
he
you did.
didn't die.
What just happened? Yeah. What happened to Enoch?
God took him. God said he's a good one.
He walked with
What
God.
in the world does that mean? Yeah.
It doesn't tell us the daughters that your sister said.
Yeah, that was normal. Unfortunately.
That's like typical.
Yeah.
Here's the firstborn.
A man wrote this. So. What'd you say?
It appears the firstborn's always his son.
Okay. Yep.
The one they name. and
Well, it was the seed line was through a man during this point. But I agree. There's going to be a point to that here in a minute. So yeah, you're right. There's not a lot of mentioned about daughters. It's just they just get the side subtext note like, oh, he had other sons and well, there are daughters there too. So there you
In the
go.
beginning, it says Seth was after his own likeness and image, Adam, and then like before that, it was God and
Yep. You're right there. Yep. So Seth is making humans now in his own image, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've read it enough, but of course I don't remember it all. But all these,
Welcome to my life. Yeah.
all of these names mean something. When you read their names in order, it has a message.
Okay, so this was a message that was perpetrated by Chuck Missler a while back. That when you read the meaning behind the names, there's a potential behind the gospel message. I will say it's a little less tight than he packaged that up.
Okay.
Now there is some really cool meanings and stuff like that, and there remains a possibility that could be what it is, but it's just not as neatly packed up as that kind of. There's some ambiguities there, and there's a couple that really throw it off, so you kind of stretching on some of them. So there's a potential. It's cool. It might be true.
I just remember that part.
Yeah,
You said
yeah.
no, that was all.
Yeah.
Well, if you look at the line, it starts with Adam and then goes, and then it stops with Noah's children, and then that one of his children goes down and it's Abram.
Yeah.
And then you go to Matthew and it starts with Abram, and so really it's the line of Jesus.
Okay. So yes. That's gonna come. Well, technically, it all converge back into the Noah line, but yes.
Well, I mean, everybody's Noah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. So you're not wrong there. Nope. Anything else that you noticed? You're right there where it stops and starts talking about the sons there. What you start to see when you begin to compare the two genealogies is something that's really cool, and it's going to take me just a minute to write this down. So if you guys have something else you want to talk about, you just go ahead and talk about that. Lamech.
Were these, the people listed, was that the first child of each of the men?
Yeah.
Is it the most important one?
No idea.
Well,
Unfortunately.
He's got three. He's called Megatron or something.
Okay, yeah, that's true. Yes, we're not going to go into the Enoch 3 line of things here. I like it though. I'm going with the more translated, alliterated spellings of some of these names, so they may not exactly match what yours are, but it's more literal as far as that goes. One interesting note is the word Lamech is only shown twice in all of the Bible, and it is in these 2 chapters, and it is not a name. Dun, dun, dun. In fact, what it is believed to be is the word king spelled backwards.
Is this the part where you're talking about the man and Adam?
I'm just kidding. I don't actually know. Hold on.
So, question 2 on the back a little different. We're talking about-
Yep.
You were talking about Cain being kicked out of Eden, and we may have discussed this already in here, we have, just come to hush and we'll move on. But we were talking about Cain saying that he was scared to be kicked out of Eden because somebody was gonna kill him, yet Cain and Abel were the first 2 sons, or the first 2 born of Adam and Eve, right? So who was gonna kill him?
That is a question that has been answered many ways, one of which is that all these people seem to be living at the same times at certain times, so maybe they just have lots and lots of kids at this point, and it fills a lot more of the land.
Before he killed Abel.
Yeah, or at least in amongst that, potentially. I mean, we're not given, like, all this happens in 24-hour periods. I am of the idea that Genesis chapter 1 talks about the creation of humanity, and Genesis chapter 2 zooms in and talks about the creation of 2 specific ones who will be the royal representatives in the presence of God as the priests to the rest of the land once they are removed from the Holy of Holies. So they will leave Eden or the Garden of Eden, and there will be a world that exists at for some way out there, created in and amongst the same 7-day creation period time frame, roughly. And so, but those are both speculations. Couldn't tell you wholeheartedly, like, this is the right way. Both have valid reasons to believe what they believe. Okay, we have 2 lines, right? What are you noticing about the 2 lines, right?
They're both.
Didn't do it, Scott.
What? What? Am I missing ones? Methuselah. Methuselah is the 7th. Oh. Okay. Okay, what are you noticing about these 2 lines, right? Because this is the first line, the first generation. 5th, 6th, 7th. 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. Okay, the first thing you should notice is something that somebody else spoke about a little bit ago. They said there's a couple names that seem to be repeated. There's Enoch. There is these 2 names, which are 1 letter off, Irid and Yered. There is Mehujael and Mahalalel, which are just a letter off in the Hebrew. There's Methushael and Methuselah, 1 letter off. There's Cain and Kenan, which is Cain with an extra N. And there are 2 Lamechs. Okay, so what we see here is there's a big hard stop in the 7th generation in chapter 4, right here. And what do we find out of that big hard stop about Lamech?
He's a meanie.
He's a turd. He's a turd. He's got multiple wives. He's got 3 kids. Do what?
Playing God.
Yeah, playing God. He's literally in a city, a fortified city built by his ancestors in a land that he's supposed to be wandering, and his name is King backwards. And he's killing people just for funsies. He's taking women for funsies. There's another hard stop in chapter 5. What hard stop do we first see? Oh, what do we know about Enoch?
He didn't die.
He walked with God.
Yeah, he didn't die. Why? He's a good dude.
He just disappeared.
Good dude. Good job, Enoch. You just disappeared and aren't going to be talked again until Hebrews. And we're not going to get filled in what in the world that means to just be taken. Just Go on.
Be nice.
And then we're going to get to the end of these generations, right? And here's this next king spelled backwards. And what does this next king spelled backwards give birth to? Noah. And Noah's name, anybody know what Noah's name means?
I forgot what you said.
It means rest.
Good job. Noah means rest. It is actually the word, this isn't the first time we've heard Noah actually. Noah is actually the word for Adam being the first man. It was Noah in the garden. He was rested into the garden. He's named rest because he is going to be given, he is hopeful to be given what? Rest to what?
To humanity. I mean,
Yeah, from what? Yeah.
yeah.
It's hope that he's going to bring rest to this land. Why? What's wrong with the land? It's bad. It's cursed. It's bringing toil. It's pain, blood, sweat, and tears, right? Because of this turd right here. And that guy, too, really, technically.
So this I'm trying to undo with this side.
This one's 3 sons. This one's going to lovely create these awesome battle axes, right? I mean, and bows and arrows and these really cool things, metallurgy and stuff, right? And these ones, I wonder what we're going to find out about these ones here in a
Oh
second.
gosh.
We're not talking about that. What we're seeing is the battle between 2 seeds. And this battle between 2 seeds is theologically making this statement that, hey, like, if you just do well, like if you just, like, why are you mad? Why are you so mad? God doesn't not favor you. God doesn't hate you. God doesn't want to destroy you. In fact, once you make your stupid decision, he's going to still protect you. Just, like, choose to do good. Like, rule the beast like Genesis 1 tells us. Like, rule that beast. That beast, it wants to conquer you. It wants to destroy you. And then generation after generation after generation after generation gets to Lamech, and it's just, oh no. You're seeing the clouds forming. There's a storm brewing. Because now this guy doesn't not only care for human life, he does not care for God at all. He's going to take these things that were not his to give, and he's going to protect himself with his own vengeful beliefs and thinkings. But there's a seed of the woman who will be a faithful remnant, who will call upon the name of the Lord. And each generation, though it's not going to be easy, will lead to this plan that God has purposed from the start. To protect the seed of the woman until one day the seed of the woman can crush the problem from the start. I mean, who knew genealogies were so much fun, right? So now what we get to see on repeat, and what we're going to discover a little bit more as we dive into this even more next week. I know, you guys are so excited about the genealogies. We're going to dive into it from a totally different perspective. We're going to dive into it from a Babylonian standpoint. Because there's these weird questions about why is there like 967 years and 912 years, 906? What does that have to do with anything? Well, this is familiar language to the Babylonians, and it'll be really kind of fun to dive into all of that. But for now, we shall stop. What questions do you have before we close out?
We should go to a
My kids need to get to bed. So do I. Any questions, thoughts, or
So
concerns?
what you've done here is you've got Adam, and this is the third son is Seth.
Yes.
And you've taken those okay.
Yes,
all right.
because Abel, remember, his name is dead at 20.
So you had Cain,
You know.
Abel's dead, and then Seth was the third son.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Which by the way, if you remember, anybody remember what Seth's name means?
Hang on, I write it down.
Nope, that was down here. Nope. Well, yeah, that might work. Consolation. It's what does it say? For God has. Anybody? Huh? It says she named him Seth. For God had
Oh yeah,
appointed.
like it was like Cain when she was She said he bore a woman.
Yeah, Cain. Here's. Oh, I have gotten man by God, right? And Seth is God has appointed me a replacement for Abel, right? So now we have God's appointed line, right? Meanwhile, I've gotten this man who's gonna get women and kill men. And it's great. It's good. Okay. Any other questions or thoughts? Yeah.
I was just drawing that and I accidentally drew Enoch straight across to Enoch.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do that, then actually Enoch is the only one that didn't have a match. So I don't know if I made a mistake on, I mean, I
So
wonder if.
you're talking this line right here?
Yeah, so then that would mean that there's no connection to Enoch and he's the only one on that side that was taken.
This line right, well, that if that's true, that would work. But this line right here, this letter is actually different than this letter in Hebrew. But this letter is the exact same as this one. And so it is technically not the same. It's like the two generations we're dealing with the one single baby name book. They're just like varying it a little bit, right? I think that's a possibility. But I actually think that like what I argue for the Genesis 1 account, it's not so much about the literal names, but the theological implications behind what you're seeing happen with the seventh generation from Adam in both lines, and how each one is clearly showing you how this micro picture of one person choosing to not rule the beast is now becoming a generation of people, which also become a nation of people, right? And it just so happens, what does Cain go and build again? Just as a
city.
He goes and builds a city. What does Seth do? Well, we don't even know what Seth does. We don't even have an idea what Seth does. But what we know is Cain goes and builds a city. And if you pay attention to all the times, especially in the Hebrew Bible, that you're talking about city builders, we'll end with this. This is a fun one. Can anybody think of any other people who are given this title of being a city builder?
Is it Jericho?
Well, Jericho is, but who?
Nimrod.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Look at you.
Nimrod. And what city does he build? Yeah, Nineveh, which is a part of what big tower?
Babel.
Yeah, Nimrod. Nimrod is going to go build a big tower. It's going to be Babylon, right? And Babylon will become the bad guys of all the future, right? Lot will go and live in amongst the city builders. Nimrod and Pharaoh will also be considered a city builder. And in every situation in which there's a city builder, what we also hear on repeat is an outcry to God. One is blood. The other ones are for help. The other ones are a desire for change. And so it's not that we shouldn't live in cities, but there's definitely a theme that's going to be on repeat with the city builders. And it'll set up the need for cities of refuge for the Israelites. It's almost like God reclaiming this city aspect from those bloodthirsty, seed of the serpents. All right. Anything else before we pray?
Right, we're talking about the sons of Seth. That's the Seth they're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Anything else?
Good John.
Gilgamesh.
We know so much.
Yes, no, maybe. Yes, no, maybe. He is, we can't jump ahead. We're going to get to Nimrod. We're going to get to Nimrod. It's part of Genesis 1 through 11. I can't give away this hint. All right, let me pray for us, and if you want to talk, you can talk. Father God, thank you so much for an opportunity to jump into your word again. I pray that you just continue to bring fresh eyes to us, God. Help us to marvel at all of the incredible intricacies that are written here. Father, in that we understand that spending time in this is spending time with you, discovering those just magnificent and incredible intricacies about you. Father, you've had a plan, you've appointed a plan. Father, that you've implanted in your word that when we spend time meditating on it, studying it, slowing down, recognizing what the authors are doing, we get to walk away going, it's so much more than a genealogy. Father, it's a revelation of who you are and what you've been doing from the start. Father, we're thankful for that. Give us a great week. Help us to come back here next week and learn more about you. We love you in your name. Amen.
I could sit here all day with you.
You wouldn't want that.
No, I really could.
I tire out and I get mad and angry
Oh, never mind.
and hangry.